What's up, guys and gals? My name is Splattercat, and we are here at the Nerd Castle with the first episode of a new series that I've been pondering for a little while. This is one of those series that I was really sort of on the fence about publishing, simply because I really love the game, but it's one that I've created sustainable societies in Gnomoria. However, watching some of the other Gnomoria videos that I've seen around, I really do feel as though I'm a bit defunct, or I feel as though I don't really make all the cool, like, switches and gears and levers that other people make. However, this was a series I covered a long time ago when I had first started my channel. In fact, this was, I think, my second video series, or maybe my third, and it was a game that I never felt like I did proper justice to. I always felt like I kind of diddled my way through without doing the tutorial, screwed up, ended up dead because I didn't know the controls, and then just kind of walked away from it. And so in the interest of redeeming myself, here I am. We're going to be playing Gnomoria for the next little bit. I can't guarantee that this series will go on forever because we will reach a certain point where we hit sustainability and then nothing interesting will ever happen again. And then beyond that point, I think we'll probably break the series off. However, this is a very fun game. It's a sandbox gnomish simulator, which is something you don't get to see very often. A lot of people like gnomes, but they don't really get, oh, I suppose, the fan service that many other races get, such as, you know, elves and dwarves and all those fun guys, especially humans. We get way too much fan service. Damn dirty humans. But anyways, let's go to new game, and we're going to start this thing off because I always get complaints when I sit on the title screen for too long. So I'm going to focus this time around on building above the surface. Like, we are going to have an underground base, but we're also going to slowly move things up above the surface as time goes along. And in order to do that properly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten the map out. There's a lot of different options right here, and you can kind of pick through them. If you're really interested, I can kind of explain them. I'm going to put smoothness like right there maybe, and then we'll go for like some narrow hills possibly. And then once we do that, I think we should be okay. I'm going to do a random seed, even though I have 3 or 4 that I really like playing that are my personal favorites, just because I feel like those would give me an unfair advantage, and I'll know where all the metal is, I'll know how to do everything way too quickly, and it'll just be way too simple. Now we can enable and disable the different types of enemies right here. I haven't ever actually seen beetles and spiders, strangely enough, so I don't know if those were added. I've dealt with goblins, I've dealt with mants and mass, golem, zombies, everything else I've dealt with, but beetles and spiders appear to be new to me, so it has been about a year since I've played this seriously, but I mean, it hasn't changed that much. I sat down over the last week or so and just kind of mashed it out, and I still was able to have like a sustainable society within my first year or so, so it didn't seem to be that much different. There are a few new things that'll have to wiki it up in between episodes, but it should be okay. I'm gonna leave everything default. And I'm not going to enable increase enemy strength over time because I don't want this to be like a grudge match kind of sudden death type thing. The game gets harder as you go along anyways, so I'm not sure. I think that just makes it so that it doesn't matter. It's just related to time the game gets more difficult versus related to how rich you are. The game has a difficulty system in which the more money and the more power you have, the more enemies that come along and try and take it from you. I think this just links it to chronology instead of to... I suggest, I mean, I guess your money. So for our kingdom name, it's going to be Gnompton. Yeah. And so another interesting thing that I'd like to do is if you guys are interested in having your names included in the game, then go ahead and leave them in the comments down below. I'll try and rename all my gnomes. Also, if you want, leave your specified job. I realize that's probably going to leave us with like 1,000 people that want to be warriors and nobody that wants to be like a yak dump cleaner. But you know what? Somebody's got to be the yak dump cleaner. So let's generate the map and I'll see you there. And so here we are, our lovely little kingdom of Gnompton. Now, if you're interested in zooming the camera in and out, you can just hold down the control key and use your scroll bar. I'm sure there's another way to do it, but we're going to have a look around here. We're going to try and see if there's any equitable points at which we can start a city. And so I think the best way to do that is to put it down. I told it to be flat, but it's not really listening. It appears to... I'm going to have to basically do some terraforming, which is going to totally suck. I think, God, there's not really any locations that I want to start, and these all look pretty bad as far as like what I want to do. I was hoping to avoid terraforming was really the main thrust of what I was trying to do. And unfortunately, this location over here is semi-tempting. I could get rid of that little knob right there, and we'd probably be okay. However, this little area might be okay, although I think it's a tad small. I would probably have to get rid of that, and most of this mountain in order to make it work, so a lot of terraforming work that would need to be done. I think sitting and staring at what we have, I think it's going to happen over here. And we'll just get rid of this mountain and this mountain, if need be, or this little tiny hillock, I suppose. That doesn't count as a mountain. So the first thing that we want to do when we start off the game, if you take a look at your gnomes, you start with a bunch of stuff. Just all kinds of things. Gnomes are known for their knickknacks. Every gnome looks a little bit different. Apparently, in our society, they are totally down with both ponytails and handlebar mustaches. That seems to be the fashion tip of the day, is if you're showing up in Gnompton, have a handlebar mustache or have a ponytail. One or the other. I don't think you have to have both. I don't see anybody with both. So I'm going to take the distinction there and just assume that it's kind of the thing to do. We start out with a bunch of supplies. I'm not really going to talk about what they are. It's seeds for planting. It's basic stuff that you have to have in order to survive your first season. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to right-click, and we're going to start off with some of the work that we need to get done before we go anywhere else. And the first thing we need to do is we need to fell some trees, because as with every game, getting wood is a pretty important part, and yes, there it is. The open opportunity for the easy joke. I'm gonna step aside and walk away from it for right now. You guys can pretend as though I made the wood joke in your heads, and then you can just kind of snicker, and that way, it's kind of interaction. You and I have come together to make a humorous wood analogy. I'm gonna go and forage out all of these strawberries as well. And it's okay to queue up a bunch of jobs right in the early game. We have a lot of time to play with. From what I can tell, they've made the game a little bit more lenient since the last time I played. I haven't had any major problems setting up like I used to, so it should be alright. The game is going to autosave the second I turn it on. We're going to speed things up. And then the next way that we would like to divert ourselves is starting to dig down into the ground to build our first base. And so let's get down to ground level, which is going to be right about here. And we want to pick a centralized spot, sort of. Actually, I think that I've messed up here. I don't want to do these trees first. Let's do... I think I've got to be on the proper level when I start this thing out, otherwise it just hates me. There we go. And so it's going to take me just a moment to cancel all these jobs. You'll forgive me as I kind of blather my way along and do things kind of clumsily, but it'll be okay, I promise. Everything's going to be alright in the end. And so now what I want to do is I actually think I'm going to fell trees in this radius right here. It's not really a radius because we're using a square. So I suppose in this limb, I think is what it's called, which is also punny because we're chopping down trees. And so there it is. See, it all comes together eventually. You will also notice that we have some bovine friends who are kind of wandering around. We want to go to designate area, and we're going to put them into a pasture for now, just to keep them out of the way and make sure they don't get into trouble. Doesn't really matter where we put the pasture. I'm going to put it right there, and it can be just about any size, but you want to be aware that the yaks that you put in the pasture, the pastured animal size, which you see right here, the maximum amount of animals in that pasture is dictated by the size of the pasture, or are dictated? I don't know. Anyways, it is dictated by the size of the pasture, so I want to have 5 to 6 animals, so I'll make it a little bit larger here. And one of our guys, the nice thing about this game is they are already signed to jobs. So what you'll see is that our farmers and our herdsmen go out here and they'll grab the yaks and drag them on back to the pasture. I assume that they grab them by the ear like my mother used to do to me. That hurts so much. If your mom used to do that, you will agree with me. You'll be like, yeah, it hurt like hell. Mom, even when I was like, God, she used to grab my ear and just like drag you, because my mom was like 4'8". And so she would like grab your ear and she would drag you down to her level so that you have to listen to the conversation. It was just like, oh God, it stings so much. But anyways, let's start digging some stairs down. I think I'm going to face them that way. If you want to rotate your set pieces, go ahead and tap the R key. And there it is right there. And I got to this menu to get these stairs by going to terrain, dig, and then stairs down. So I'm going to treat this as a little bit of a tutorial to kind of help people get started, because this is a game that I feel has a tremendous amount of metagame. Like, you have to study this game quite a bit before you're ever going to be able to accomplish it. And so I'm going to start digging stairs down to the level where we might be able to gain access to stone. And you want to be careful. Now, there are certain thresholds that you want to watch out for when you're digging down underneath the ground. You never in the early game want to go down deeper than the -6. Why is that? If you go down deeper than the -6, you are signing a contract. So let's say I go down to the -7, which I think I just did. Never mind. If we go down to the -7, we are signing a contract that we're okay with getting attacked by skeletons and clay golems as soon as we get out of our first season. The clay golems, not so bad, except they can accidentally punch you in the throat every now and again and kill you. The skeletons, a little bit more of a concern, not because they're amazing fighters, but because we don't have bandages, so we have no way to stop bleeding right now, and your characters will just sit around and bleed out. And so until we have bandages, you really don't want to go down below the -6. Nothing can spawn as long as we stay above -7. So while there are metals and nicer things down below here for our first season, we will probably not be going that deep. Now, it is important, you'll notice that I'm rushing a little bit as I play. Your first season is the only season you get, which gives you leeway from the enemies that are waiting, the nasty hordes outside your gates. And as you can see, they're digging through the levels right here. Chop, chop, chop. Very, very nice. I accidentally thumbed my keyboard and turned everything off. If we don't hit stone soon, so we didn't hit stone, that's going to be a little bit bad. And so what we can do now is we can kind of tempt fate, and what we'll do is we'll actually go down to the -7, which I know I realize I just told you not to do. There it is. So we've hit marble, I believe. It could be marble or granite, I'm not sure. Being a geologist, I would like to make the distinction, but I doubt anybody else really cares. Let's go ahead and we're going to round this out slightly. And this is going to be for a stone supply, basically our community quarry, so that we can get ourselves set up with the supplies that we're going to be needing for the later game ventures that we're going to be signing up for. So I don't think we'll need more than 300 or 400 stone. And I believe the best way that we could possibly get this done, there's some coal right there. If you see it on the wall, you see those little... Let's go in for the close-up. There it is right there. Delicious little coal. There it is if you're looking for coal. However, I don't think we're going to be needing coal for a bit. This is going to be one of those things. I'm going to seal this off as soon as our first season is over. So as long as you're aware that that's what's going to be happening, then I think we're going to be on even keels here. On the -6, I am going to make my preliminary base on the -6. So let's go ahead and do the same thing that we did on the -7 and get this thing going. We want to be very careful. You want to pause the game a lot as you play through the early game, because really missing a couple days worth of work can absolutely 100% screw you up in the long term and make it so that you may not survive through winter. And I know that sounds like a really kind of fatalist and defeatist thing to say, but I mean, you really want to make use of your time. You really sincerely do. If you're not making use of your time, it could get a little bit ugly for you. So in order to make this work properly, it's playing some rather reminiscent Final Fantasy sounding music right now, which I'm digging. I'm getting my groove on, I'm kind of swaying the head, I'm doing my dance, I'm kind of getting a little bit of a snap on with my fingers, which is very, very difficult while playing with both a keyboard and a mouse, I'll have you know. But you know what, Nerd Castle? Anything for you. If I can snap my fingers and stomp my feet while playing on the keyboard for you guys, that's what I'm going to do. So just let it be known that I will spare no expense to my finger and my phalanges in order to make it work. There we go, and those are basically the same thing. Oh, they're thirsty, so they're gonna go find themselves something to drink on, and that means they have to run all the way back out here. It appears as though we have a number of farmers sitting around doing nothing, and so the best thing for me to have them do right now is actually start up our farming. It's never too early to start farming. Some people will argue with me right there, but I will say that I personally really prefer to start farming early. So what I'm gonna do is we'll just get a long strip going right there. 13 by 4, that's going to give us a 52 plot. I don't think that's going to be good enough. We haven't cleared enough trees yet. I don't like our open space right now. I think I might rather go over here. And the first big field that we make, God, I suppose the first reasonably sized field that we make. Let's go ahead and continue foraging, actually. I don't think people are at that point where... Yeah, I'm looking around, and you can look at some of the people, and if you click on them, it'll tell you what they're... It's farmer and farmer. Okay, so I don't know who I was looking at over on the other side. Rancher. Okay, so she's the one that's taking care of the yaks. That's actually kind of a waste of a job, as I recall. I don't think the rancher actually does anything... Oh, the rancher does cooking. That's how they make up for it. And also leather crafting. Let's give her bone working, too, so that she's not sitting around too much. And there it is. We've gone through, and I promise by the next episode, after you guys have left... Actually, no, I won't. I'm going to record 3 or 4 episodes of this, so I may not get people named as quickly as you might like. Well, maybe I'll just do 1 episode today. Maybe 1 or 2. We'll do 2, because I'm in the mood to play some Gnomoria. And then once we have the 2 episodes in... By the 3rd episode, I should start naming people. How about that? How does that sound? Does that sound okay? Are we all in agreement? Fantastic. Let's move forward. I'm going to continue. I'm going to make everything look a little bit different this time through. Typically, my bases have the tendency to look very much the same. And I think in this case, I'm going to make them look a little bit different. And so I am going to try and make everything symmetrical, just because it keeps my eye from twitching. My eye, it starts twitching like crazy if things aren't at least somewhat symmetrical. They can be slightly out of alignment, but once they're like way out of alignment, it'll just be like, I hate this. And then I sit around just being angry and headbutting hard surfaces because I don't like looking at it. Why am I digging out ground right now? Well, I'm making space for all the things we're going to need in the future. And one of those things that we're going to need in the future is going to be a dormitory. So let's go ahead, and I think I'm going to build in squares this time around. Let's do that. Let's build in squares. I like that. Although that may need to be a little bit smaller of a square if I decide to do that. So maybe we'll build in rectangles. Never mind, I'm already backing off my own preliminary analysis. Let's go like a little dormitory right there, and that seems to be okay. It leaves this little overhang, which I don't necessarily like. But that's part of the problem with not kind of building in a linear fashion. Instead, I'm building in kind of this weird, I don't know, polygon shape. It pleases me, don't question it too much, but I am going to be wasting space here and there. So once that's all done, we're also going to start clearing out new space. In fact, I could probably fix that problem by stepping in a little bit further, but not gonna, you know, just kind of shrug and say whatever and not think about it too hard. We'll move into right there, and yeah, I'm definitely wasting space here. And I think I would like to go with 9x9s possibly, conceivably. And that should leave us with a wall space right there. And we also need a storage dump. And so I'll probably... Let's go ahead and zone this. So if you want to designate something as a zone, it's very, very simple. You right-click, you go to Designate Area, and then you go to, oh my god, the menu's exploded. And then you go to, let's see here, Stockpile, we don't want that, we want... Dormitory. I can read, I can find it. I know I can. I gotta sound it out though. So there's our dormitory. And that means when they have to go to sleep, they will go to sleep there. The other thing that's important is if your dormitory doesn't have anything to sleep on, you should probably remedy that. In the early game, I like to go with straw beds. You can make 6 straw beds. So it takes 2 straw to make a straw bed. We've got 32 right now. I like to keep around 10 straw per yak. It's a little bit overkill, but that's just me personally. I like to play it safe, and so we're going to play it safe. Let's go ahead and we'll take the build menu here, and we're going to build 6 beds, just kind of in the background right here, so that people have things to sleep on. Now, why do they need stuff to sleep on? They will sleep without things to sleep on. However, it will make them very inefficient at sleeping, if you've ever heard of such a thing. You kind of want to get their sleeping to the point where when they crash out, they wake up quickly, they get back to work quickly, and so this helps them redeem themselves with regards to their stamina a bit quicker. I'm not going to dig a hole. We don't want to be digging any holes for ourselves this early in the game. We would prefer to avoid that. And believe me, those holes that you dig in the early game can definitely give you some trouble later on. I think I'm going to go for another 9x9 over here. And then in order to make use of some of this random space over here, I think what I'll do is we'll do something like this, just to make sure that it's getting used. And I don't know what this is going to be over here, but I think it's safe to say that we could probably make use of it as like a stockpile for something. So we'll get the miners. I want to keep them working anyways. You just want to make sure your miners are always kind of endeavoring to do something in the early game. You don't want anybody idle your first season. That's basically, you always want to have a job laid out for somebody in the first season. The next thing that we'd like to do is let's take a look at our lumber choppers right now. It appears as though they are getting that first round of lumber chopped. They're doing a pretty good job making sure that we have logs to use for later, because logs are going to be kind of the capstone of a lot of our construction for the remainder of the game. So you want to have a decent supply of them. I'd say like 100 to 150 will probably last you for the first season before you have to do any other major deforestation. And on this side, this is not going to be symmetrical. I can tell you now already I'm going to screw this up. So let's go in. How far in did I go from the wall? 8. Okay, so just in the interest of like making this work in a way that I don't hate, we'll try and go 9x9 over here as well. And there it is. And so we'll call that the corner. We'll go like so, and maybe we will be able to get it symmetrical. I don't know. Maybe. It could happen. Cool. And so that'll work out a little bit better. We'll use these extra storage spaces for any random stuff that we need. Right now, I'm just making sure that I'm carving out all of my kind of workshops for later. So one's going to be for wood, one's going to be for stone, one's going to be for cloth. I like to keep everything segregated by what its use is. The other thing that I'd like to mention while we're on the subject is this is kind of more of an organizational thing, and so I just wanted to put it out there. I was considering editing this series fairly heavily. Now, this first episode is obviously not going to be edited because, you know, there's lots of stuff going on. However, in the case that, and I didn't measure that properly, there we go. And in the case that we end up with a lot of episodes with dead space, would you guys prefer that I edit, or would you prefer that I just kind of chat my way through it and we just like do our thing and wherever it lands, it lands? Because that can be how it goes if you would prefer it. I would leave it up to the NCE's judgment there. But I will acquiesce to whatever request you guys seem to want. If you want me to heavily edit the episodes, then I will heavily edit the episodes until interesting things happen, so that we don't end up with like a Mountain Blade situation where there's nothing happening for like 30 minutes at a time, or we can just do this unadulterated and I can kind of try and talk about all the goofy things that happen during my day, and maybe we can end up with some hilarity, and it's kind of a gamble. You may end up with a lot of boredom as well. Okay, and so I feel like we have enough space now. We have loads and loads of space to be used for just about anything and anything you could ever desire. I will also make a small... oh, I don't know, we'll go 1 floor down or something, or 2 floors down, and what we'll do is we'll take this, we'll space it out slightly, And we're going to make a dirt stockpile in here somewhere. And so there it is. We're just going to call this entire area a dirt stockpile so they can start hauling dirt and things around. Some people will highly, highly, highly recommend that you do not haul dirt in the early game. I'm going to listen to that request, and I'm not going to do it, in fact. Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel as though that might be a really bad idea. However, that doesn't stop us from designating other areas as useful stockpiles for the things we may need later. And so I think I'm going to call this the wood area. If you want to expand a stockpile, all you need to do is make sure that it overlaps. Then we're going to double click it. We're going to go to stockpile. You can single click it too, BT dubs. But I'm going to call this we'll call this the wood stockpile. We'll call wood and crafts, I suppose. This one over here, oh, I don't have one over there. How disappointing, how tremendously droll. Well then, I will call this a stockpile over here then. We'll call it a stockpile for not everything. God, that would be a mess. We'll call it a stockpile for stone, metal, gems, and crafts. Yeah, well, the crafts can all go over there. We'll just kind of have a little inefficiency here and there. So that's the one thing that I would like to point out is as I play through this game, I am going to intentionally do inefficient things just because I don't like the way that they function. If you ever watched my RimWorld, I actually micromanage people's jobs a little bit better in this game because you have to. If you don't, you will end up dead. You can't just let people do every job. It will be 100% just a nightmare for you if you try and do that. But what I can say is that you can kind of assign jobs and fire and forget later on down the line if you really prefer it. So anyways, let's continue mining out some of these walls and making use of some of this extra stone. And I'm going to get this out to a... Hold on. What's going on here? Let me make sure I've got this measured out properly. So that's going to be a 12 by 12. No, 11 by 13. Okay. Well, that's fine, as long as one of the sides is 13. I'm measuring out the 13s for a reason. It has to do with light radiuses, or light radii, and I will tell you later why I'm measuring the 13s. And so Bally is falling asleep on the floor. Whoever you are that I renamed Bally out there in the NCE, you have fallen asleep now. I like to think that these gnomes are you guys in spirit already, even though I haven't named them. Now, I do see people wandering aimlessly, which leads me to believe that it may be time to do some other stuff. So in our second day, it looks like we have cleared out a lot of the space over here, but first and foremost, this is a clay floor. What that means is that we need to replace this. So if you go to terrain and replace floor, you can go to soil, you'll select dirt clump, and we need to get rid of this clay on the surface. And in fact, I'm going to go through and get rid of all of it so that all of my farmlands are uninterrupted. I've kind of explained already sideways why I'm doing this, but you need to replace the clay because you can't plant any of your crops on clay. They don't like it. Now that leads me to believe, I think that like wineries and things really like being planted on clay IRL, but anyways, maybe they'll add that in later. I know that there's some kind of crop that really likes to be planted on kind of clay soils. But anyways, you can't do it within the context of the game, so don't try. It won't work. And have they... Okay, so it's a dirt floor now. What we want to do is while everybody's sleeping, we've got a giant, giant dead space. And so while everybody... And I don't mean the super awesome game. I mean that we have like a dead space in which nothing is happening. And so what I'd like to do with that dead space is now start designating some farms. And this is going to take us a minute. I'm going to leave the game running while I do this. But the first thing we need is maybe just like a little 7x7. And that is going to be for wheat. The wheat is going to be useful later on, A, because it gives us wheat straw, which we can feed to animals, B, because it gives us wheat, which we can turn into beer, and then C, because I just want to do it. Because wheat is awesome and allows us to make bread, and I'm a huge bread fan. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a little... I don't know if it's worth it. I'm going to do a 6x6, I think. Even though it's not going to be symmetrical and it's going to look a little bit weird, and I know people out, we'll keep it symmetrical just for the interest. We're going to call it a cotton field. Typically, you want to keep your cotton fields to a minimum. This is kind of a large cotton field. There's really no reason to have a cotton field that large. However, I like symmetry, and so I'm going to sabotage my future success based on the fact that I like everything to be symmetrical. I apologize now if that just makes you crazy as a Gnomoria epic kind of professional Gnomoria player. I apologize. Know that I didn't do it because I wanted to. I did it because OCD is a thing. I'm going to... we missed one. Zootaloo. And so let's go ahead and get rid of that. And so down along this side, I don't think it would be a terrible idea to get our strawberry crops going, which are going to be our primary form of sustenance as we play the game. And the Misty Bread, a mining colony, has been discovered. Psh, we don't know those guys. They can't come hang out with us in the hood of Gnompton. Gnompton is real. It is out here all day. All you can hear is just gnomes clicking off at one another. Just click, clack, click, clack. That's how it goes. You can play count the gunshots in Gnompton. Nobody wants to come around here, so we don't want your Misty Bread. We don't want to know you. We don't want to see you. If we don't know you, we don't want to know you in Gnompton. That's how it goes. And so I think we are going to... Let's go a 10 by 4 right there. That's going to be a strawberry field. And then we will also do something similarly on this side. And I think that's lined up. I think it was a 10 by 4. And so there it is. Got ourselves another strawberry field. And so while it's not perfectly symmetrical, it's the best I could do with what I have. And so that should maintain our farmers as workers for quite some time. The next thing we need to do, I actually probably should have done yesterday, but I left the game running all night. We need to set ourselves up some crude workbenches. Why do we care about crude workbenches? Well, I could make the jokes about them being especially flatulent right now and not being good at dinner parties, but I feel like I make that joke every single time I do a crafting game. So instead, the crude workbenches, they're just going to be poorly crafted this time. We're going to be literalists. That is how we're going to roll. And so why do we need these? We need these because we need to start making some planks. And if we don't have planks, life is not going to be good to us. So first things first, we'll make 5 chisels, and then we will say this place will make, say... Oh, I don't know. They will make... Maybe... we'll just set them on repeat for now, because we're going to need a lot of planks. This one, by contrast, is just going to craft planks, and that's pretty much all we're going to do today. That's pretty much all we're going to do today with our woodcutters, is they're just going to cut planks all day, every day. And once they get all the planks done, we can start building other stuff. And so this is going to be your first major bottleneck, is producing planks out of the raw logs that you have. However, I am going to do the best I can to elucidate the crafting paths you're going to need to be ready by the end of your first season. So why are we making planks? While we're sitting here doing nothing, I've got people wandering around. Did I say something was for stone? Why is stone not... Is it being hauled from below as of yet? I do get the distinctive feeling that people are just kind of wondering, what are you doing, man? The builder, he's idle. I believe that it has trolled me slightly and given me people. Is he good at anything else? Can I assign him to a different job? Because I would really prefer to, if I could assign him to something else. Like, the builder is kind of a wasteful profession right now. So, Nemkinwala, I think I'm going to have Nemkinwala be a... Or at least missile. He should already have hauling enabled. Okay, so maybe something has gone wrong with my stockpiles. Wood is ready to be hauled. Whatever. I'm sure he'll do it eventually. I mean, it says he's idle. He should be hauling right now. I have no idea. Sometimes these things happen with this game. He is a builder, correct? Okay, so he's a builder who is now idle. Sir. You're enabled for the hauling. So maybe I will go ahead and do dirt hauling right now. You might as well. So let's go to this stockpile, and we will say that it's ready for soil hauling. I may actually put some planting seeds in here and stuff too. There we go. And so everybody has now jumped to work. They are now laboring like crazy. It appears as though I had a lot of idle people outside of my farmers. So getting a little bit of hauling done kind of improves efficiency in the... It's a long game thing that I'd like to go for, but honestly the hauling is not so tremendously important that I would like to sacrifice other things that need to happen right now. So instead what I think I'll do is I'll start doing some of my basic mining right here, and I'm just going to connect these by maybe like little... I can connect them by 11s, and I'm spacing these on purpose so that if there's any metal in here we can get at it. But the other reason that I'm spacing these as they are is because we're going to have to put a torch at each end. So let's go ahead, and that should be a 10 by 10 all by its lonesome. Or no, it's going to be weird. That's right, because the first room was not the right size. And I don't want that to be up to the edge of the map, so maybe I'll build out in another direction instead. And the reason I'm doing this is just to get at that stone and do a little bit of kind of, I guess, haphazard prospecting and making sure that we know where all of the minables that we need are. So there we are. Have I left the game running? Okay, good. I paused it. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't making that blunder. Like, when you're playing the game, don't ever leave it running if you're trying to assign things to do. Just, like, always pause it up, make sure all your jobs are queued up so that everybody is working at the things they need to be working at. Let's take a head count of our planks by going to our stocks menu, jumping on over to items. We'll go into goods, we'll go to wood, and we've got 4 planks right now. Not nearly enough as what we're going to need to get some of our building and construction done, so we're just going to leave them carving out planks for now. and just call it a day. My name is Splattercat. Thank you for joining me here as we play Gnomoria, which is a very, very cool game. I like Gnomoria a lot. This is one of those occasions where I get to play a game that I am truly, incredibly just kind of passionate about, where this game has been good to me, I have been good to it, and it's a game that has given me a lot of playtime. So I will see you guys in the next episode. Take care out there, everybody. Don't forget to leave the names that you would prefer down below. Obviously, if it's like 6 months from now, check the date that I published this on. It's right underneath the video, and obviously I can't name a gnome after you if it's like 6 months after the publishing date. But anyways, I figured I'd point it out. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Take care out there, everybody, and hi-do from Gnompton.